Bruh. Oh my gosh, it's raining. Wow. Alrighty. Today I'm gonna be heading to the Austrian Military History Museum. I think it's called the Heeresgeschichtliche Museum, but I'm probably saying that wrong, so sorry to anyone out there who speaks German. Dumb American. Alrighty. Hopefully I don't get their lights. Oh no, I found a Stolpersteine. Wohnten Karl Sabine, Getlanda Seidman. Oh, sorry about that. Deported on September 4th, or is that, I don't know, September 4th, I think it is, 1942, Nach Isba Immordent. Rest in peace, my guy. I'm sorry, man. Hope you're doing okay. Yeah. I'll just wipe this off a little bit. I think I'm doing that right, but I don't know. I want to make that look nice, because, yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Those are the Stolpersteine. I think the things I saw yesterday, which I thought were Stolpersteine, I don't think those actually were. Maybe I looked up some of the things on Google Translate, and I think one of them was. I found one as I was walking back, but I think I was kind of wrong. But I was right about the purpose and all that, but I was wrong about assuming that those were Stolpersteine. But this time I think I actually found one. And these things, as I said, they're all over. They're everywhere, because the Holocaust was also everywhere. You have to remember, it's not just one camp. There's millions, no, not millions. There's literally thousands of them. I think this is another one. Let's see. Den diesem Haus wohnte, Udia wurde Federer gefreut. Ah, yes. Holocaust. I think I'm doing this right, but I apologize. Here we go. Hope you rest in peace. Sorry that happened to you. I don't know what to say, man. That one was not too far from the other one, and it's literally in the street, like right next to this Indian restaurant. Now I can't be distracted, but still, I gotta take some time to really show some respect to what happened here, because we need to remember this stuff so that it doesn't happen again, because it could happen again. And that's the scary thing about this whole event, is you think it will never happen again, but it does and can, and it has happened again. Like maybe in a different form, but it still can happen again. Anti-Semitism is still a problem, like worldwide. It's not going away anytime soon. And genocide in general will continue to happen. The Holocaust was not the end of large-scale genocides. Like in my mom's lifetime, and my mom was like 50, there was the Cambodian genocide done by the Khmer Rouge, and the Rwandan genocide, which was done in the 90s. And so many other things. When is this light going to go? I think I'm in the right spot, but yeah, I really just want to point that out. We need to remember this stuff, and we cannot forget it, because it could happen again. If we don't learn our history, we will repeat it. This is why history as a discipline is often so underrated. You think studying math and science is important, and it is important, but studying history it also means something as well. Alrighty, I believe I'm at the right trolley car, and hopefully I can make it to the Military History Museum, but It looks like the Sistine Chapel. This look-
So, of course, this is very much. Spatial hall here in the museum is the Hall of Glory, which we're standing right now. It still represents all the generals that they, on their shoulders, they carry all the victories of the Austrian army. You can see all the victories, very important victories. There are many, many victories. Maybe I come to it later on where you can see a book where all the victories and battles were standing inside. So it's a huge, 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 huge book. Just a side fact, Austria, or the Habsburg Empire, was the country with the most wars, and it started the most wars in history. Here you can see the whole area from the front, as it was in the 19th century. Sadly, we cannot see. Oh, yes, you could see it. There would be a train station also, because we are very, very close to the main station of Vienna, central station, which was before it became the main central station of Vienna. It was actually two train stations: the southern train station and the eastern train station, which were together when it became the main station.
Wow. Ooh. Wow. Yo, this is the medieval armor that they were talking about.
Which was used to hook them into palisade walls or fortresses. So these were defense weapons. They were not for attacking. These were defense weapons. One question: what do you think? How far can they shoot effectively? They're 500 years old. 10 meters? 10 meters. 10 meters is quite good. They are like approximately 15 meters is efficient range for this kind of guns. You would load them in front, but not with lead, but with stone, small stones. So they had like a cone in front, like a shotgun, so it would be very effective against cavalry charges and bunches of people, but they would not be very effective on long range. Yeah. They invented something else that would take that role, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on. But first on, why do we start here with the 16th century? Yeah? And what do we show in this museum? Originally, when it opened in 1956, it was actually a museum that showed all of the Austrian army. But nowadays, it's not the case anymore, because it got changed in the 1880s, where we would show only a standing army. Right? No Middle Ages, no knights in armor. This is not what we show here, because the knights' armies in the Middle Ages, they were a lot different than in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century by the standing armies, right? It became very clear that the standing armies were necessary. Also, the mass armies were necessary. When the first battle of Mohacs in the 16th century, 1529, happened, and the huge Ottoman army defeated the small but very powerful and very well equipped knights' army of the Hungarian knights. They were defeated, and after that they knew we cannot rely on these knights, small but very powerful knight armies. We have to have really big mass armies to combat the Ottoman army. So it got changed, it cost a lot of money, and it created a lot of jobs, and these jobs were soldiers, and we want to show exactly that, the job and the life of the soldier. And this changed in the 16th century. That almost, we will see everything. Okay, so here, going to the 30 years war. The most important battle of the Austrian army in the 30 Years' War. It is against the Swedes. On the other side, you can see Sweden, the Swedish army, under the command of Gustav Adolphus. He was the Swedish king, and he was a military reformer. He actually did a lot of stuff to bring the military up to speed here, the Swedish military, and he was a great and genius tactician on the battlefield as well. So he pushed him farther and farther in front, and there was just one man the emperor knew that could actually defeat Gustav Adolphus, and it was Weinstein.
That's Arabic. That's in Arabic. Is that one of the Ottoman like banners or something? Wow.
Okay. So here we see more exotic weapons. These weapons are not from Austrian soldiers. These weapons are actually from the Ottoman army. The Ottoman army consisted of a huge array of abilities. It was spanning originally, or in this time, it was spanning from the eastern parts of Europe downwards to Afghanistan and Syria. So it was a huge, huge, huge empire, a multi-ethnic empire. And behind me you can see some remnants of the Ottoman army. You can see here these clubs which were used like very similar to the rapiers in the Austrian army, which were shown like more design, more ornaments, so it meant higher position, higher standing, higher social standing, right? And you can see here also on this top, you can see these emblems, which also show us the rank of the Ottoman soldier. But the important and also the more interesting objects are not the weapons in this display kits. It is actually these standards here, which are like very, very important, like the eagle from the Romans. You know, these are like very, very important things made by hair of horses. So horsehair. This is horsehair knitted horsehair. Very, very, very beautiful pieces, and they would stand in front of the tents. You have to imagine the Ottoman army back in the day was the biggest army in the whole world. It had approximately, according to the sources, between 160,000 and 200,000 soldiers, which was an immense army back in the day, right? The Austrian army didn't even come close to this number. It had 72,000 soldiers. Like this was like more than double the size. And these 5 of them would be standing in the front of the tent of the Grand Vizier, the second man in the Ottoman Empire, and 5 of them would be standing in front of the tent of the Sultan. So we have 5 here. Where did we take these? Or where did they come from? They come from 1683, the Second Siege of Vienna, which we'll talk about very, very shortly behind this wall. No, my colleague is still there, so I will show you a little bit about what happened before the actual siege. And you can see here, this man is very important for that story, because it's the Polish king and the Duke of Lithuania. It's Johann Sobieski, or Jan Sobieski, the Polish king, as I already said. And originally, after the Battle of St. Gotthard in 1683, it was becoming very clear that a peace treaty between the Austrians and the Ottomans was necessary. A peace treaty was formed then, and when it ended, no new peace treaty followed. So it was clear for everyone a new war was going to happen. So what were they doing? The Polish king and the emperor of the Austrian Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, they made a pact. They made a defense pact, like the NATO is nowadays, but not with less rules actually. Yeah? But they made a defense pact, and because actually they thought that the next attack would they would come to Ukraine. The next attack would come to Ukraine, and Poland would be the target of the Ottoman army. Because the Ottomans said so in the beginning. They said so. They want to take more of Hungary, more of Ukraine, and more of Poland. The order of the Sultan to his new Grand Vizier, which we can see here. Here you have the old Grand Vizier. He was responsible for the peace treaty. is Köprili Pasha. And here you have the new Grand Vizier, Kara Mustafa. And the new Grand Vizier, he had big plans for his future, right? His family was in the position of the Grand Vizier for over 150 years. He had plans for himself and for his legacy. He wanted to take a big city, not small fortress towns or something like that. He wanted to take a big, huge, very important city. The Sultan gave him his order. The big 160,000 strong man army was going from Istanbul through Greece, and in Greece he changed his clothes from his war clothes to his hunting clothes. He went hunting with his friends, and he left the Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa in charge. But he gave him orders, and the orders were, you should take border fortresses in Hungary. He said, okay, I will do that. He went on his way to Hungary up, but then he turned left. And in a small city in nowadays Hungary, in Raab, it was noticed by the Austrians. He is not on the way to Poland, but he is straight on his way to Vienna, and we have 7 days left
Where
to
in Hungary?
fortify in Raab. Raab. It's nowadays. I can show how it's called nowadays, right? But back then it was called Raab. It was a small fortress town with a small fortress inside. And as they attacked and took the fortress, it was clear their way would not lead up to Poland and Ukraine and Hungary, but rather to Vienna. So 7 days left. What happened? The Emperor Leopold, he instantly went away. He went to Passau. 80,000 aristocrats and very wealthy and rich people followed in his footsteps. And then all the surrounding towns were flooding inside the city walls, the big city walls of Vienna. Vienna, behind me, the big city walls of Vienna, they were built from the newest technique, the Italian technique. You can see the bastions here in front. It's actually a star fortress from the top. You can see here the bastions, and in front the glacis. And these walls, they were very thick. But here, exactly here, I will come to it later. But what happened effectively after all the people swarmed into the city? The Ottomans arrived around Vienna, and like mushrooms, tents were popping up all around the city. You can see all the tents displayed here. A huge tent city formed, and the relentless bombing of Vienna started. For 2 months, the Ottoman army bombed every day with mortars. You can see here. The disease was spreading in the city, and all the people were starving inside of the city. Additionally to all these hardening factors were the Ottoman army was 160,000 to 200,000 men strong. The garrison in Vienna held 15,000 soldiers. So on every Viennese soldier there would come 10 Ottoman soldiers trying to get into the city. Okay, the city held strong for 2 months, as I said, but one time it was very close. And here you can see this scene. It's a storm on the Löwenpastei. It's the same picture, or it's the same scene, which I showed you already in the Hall of Glory on the fresco on the left side. So the Ottomans, you can see here all the trenches where they would go very close to the walls. And it was over the 75,000 men strong Holy Alliance, because Pope Innocent XI framed this conflict actually as a holy war. He said, for it to not become a Muslim city, all Christian states and leaders should help the Austrian people to free Vienna, right? And so he paid a lot of money, and he did a lot of propaganda actually to make this what happened. Actually, one small hint about propaganda is still here. The goal of propaganda is to take away humanity, right? Until there is no human left on the other side. Because if there is no human, you're not killing them. So it's not murder. And here on the right side, you can see the depiction of the Ottoman people as monsters, right? As very ugly and monsters. But if you are in Istanbul, in the same museum, or the equivalent to the same museum here, you can see the same stuff, but only on the other side, right? So everybody makes it, but we should be aware of it. Nowadays, you can see here, this is Kara Mustafa, the band is here fleeing to Belgrade. Yeah, this one with the very colorful vest here. This is Kara Mustafa in his field tent, surrounded by the Janissaries, the elite troops of the Ottoman army, which you can see here. They are hat with the feather, which was actually called Peche. So you can see them here. These were elite troops. Also, there's a history about them. But I don't know. Okay, I think we go ahead. I show you if you would translate it. And this is actually not 10 years later, 13 years after the Battle of Vienna, and you can see the Ottomans had these red coats, right? So they looked at it and they wanted to imitate parts of it. So this was the first uniform that was ever produced in Austria. But you cannot imagine it. Okay, now we make uniforms. Everybody has a uniform right now. This is not the case. First, there was the Viennese at the Hofburg, at the center of the empire, and then gradually everybody got a uniform later on. Right? So it was not like an instant. Everybody now wears uniforms. It was way too expensive and logistically impossible back in the day. The Ottoman guns you can see here, these are only special pieces here. These are no ordinary muskets, very special pieces, very heavily decorated. You can see also some of them here. The Ottomans had a lot of weapons. Yeah. This is Emperor Leopold I. He was in charge of Austria back then, and it was Holy Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Emperor. Yeah. Do you know how one becomes the Holy Roman Emperor? Do you know how one becomes the Holy Roman Emperor?
He was crowned by the Pope, right?
He was crowned by the Pope, yeah, right.
Yeah.
It was
like Charlemagne.
He got elected by all the bigger dukes. They were like archdukes. Yeah. From these he would crown, and they were like this small plate. It's called archduke plate. Yeah. And with this you would go and would elect the new king. And the Habsburgs, they had a lot of influence and friends, so essentially it was, every time it was a new Habsburg. So, we are here in the 18th century. A little bit lighter. Someone asked once if it's on purpose. So when we go into the 18th century, the Enlightenment, and we come here, and it's way more light, but it's not on purpose. Okay, here you can see a battle and a very important general of the Austrian army. You may have heard about him. He's Eugen from Savoyen. He's Prince Eugen. Yeah? Why is he called Prince? Because he was a distant relative of the French king. Yeah? So he could name himself Prince. And he originally came from France, close in Paris, but his family originally stemmed from Italy, from near Turin, and he was a very gifted strategist, a very gifted tactician and strategist, and he came into power. His first battle he ever fought was 1683 in the Siege of Vienna, right? And then after that, he had a stellar career in the Austrian army. And you have to imagine it like this. After the second Siege of Vienna, the big Ottoman army was defeated in disarray. The Austrians saw this as an opportunity to go into a counter-offensive and then take all the lands that were occupied by the Ottomans and make them their own. This was the time where Austria became what it was 200 years. Yeah? It became a huge empire. This was the turning point for the small Austria to become huge. Put in a piece of cloth right, to compress it even more. And then you would put in these mortar grenades. These mortar grenades are empty inside, so you would put also black powder inside, and then you would have a net, a match net, which you would cover it up and put the matches down into the grenade. So you would load it up and then you would shoot it. And one very faithful evening, this one, the troop that was originally working with this mortar, they were a little bit drunk, so the legend says, as they were a little bit drunk, and they wanted to make a firework inside the city of Belgrade. And they started to shoot it, and one of the mortar grenades accidentally, by chance, hit the powder tower of Belgrade, the place where all the black powder of the city was stored. A huge explosion followed, which destroyed the whole city district. It killed 3,000 Ottoman soldiers in a heartbeat. Like it is with most of things, you never hear how many civilians actually lost their lives by this explosion, but there must be many, 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 many. Because I started with it, I want to also talk a little bit about it, because from the first uniform, there are then two uniforms, a white and a red one. That's it. Yeah. And in the 1760s, Maria Theresa, which became the Empress of Austria, she made a lot of reforms here in Austria, and one of them would be the military reform. And you can see here how diverse all the uniforms start for every single piece of troop. You can see here displayed. But now I think we go ahead. And both times they were taken. So all these verses here actually represent time of Maria Theresa. Yeah? So this is the first time a Maria Theresian military the first time it was officially puked down, which is here on the right side. Rare outside of France. Yeah. Here in Vienna it's even more rare because in Vienna there are a lot of small cells of Jacobiner, but it was very heavily suppressed. Right? This is something that come after in the post-Napoleonic time and in the pre-March period in Austria. It was This one is the Völkerschlacht last battle actually from which is fought by a huge Napoleonic army, right? He came back then and was again defeated in Waterloo, right? But this one is actually where it ended his career. And you can see here, Napoleon was not very popular in Europe. On the right side, you can see all of Europe combined against him. In the midst, there are the three most important monarchs. You see on the left, in the green, is the Russian Tsar, Alexander. In the middle is the Austrian Emperor Franz. And on the right, there is the Prussian King Friedrich. Yeah? So this is the battlefield of Leipzig. This is actually after the battlefield of Leipzig, when the victory was presented to the monarchs. But you have to keep in mind that the Austrian emperor, he was never at the battlefield. He was in his castle a few kilometers away from the battlefield, but he is still depicted here receiving the note of victory. But he was never there. He crowned himself the first Austrian emperor, because this means the Austrian empire is not that old, right? It's 200 years old, and it got changed then 67 years or 63 years later. It got changed again and changed again, so it changed quite a lot. But he was the first Austrian emperor, but he was the second Holy Roman Emperor, so that made him simultaneously the first and the second whilst he was in his lifespan. Okay, here on the other side are some objects regarding the Napoleon again. You can see here his coat. He wore this coat as a disguise. It's a Russian coat. He had an Austrian military uniform beneath the Russian coat, because they feared that someone would kill him on the journey from his chateau to Austria here, where his fate was ultimately decided. Which is quite interesting, because Austria has the oldest taxi laws. They are in our constitution. Yeah? The taxi laws for taxi drivers are in the Austrian constitution. Why is that the case? In the Viennese Congress, they imported a lot of carriages. Because all the aristocrats, they didn't want to go by foot, so they wanted to carry the horse carriage. And after they left, they had thousands of empty horse carriages in Vienna. They didn't know what to do with them. So they made this, you see them still now in Vienna driving around sometimes, but it happens after the meeting. I really love it. This is where I wrote my bachelor thesis about. And it is the revolution of 1848. You can see here on the left side is Emperor Ferdinand I, which was emperor when the revolution was starting. But he was not a politician actually. He was good with numbers, very good with numbers, but he was not socially, he was quite awkward, right? And he was not a politician. This shows when his adjutants came to him and they were telling him about the revolution, and he said, can they do that? Which is, from his perspective, quite a silly question to ask. And then it was clear he cannot handle the revolution, someone else has to take the place. You can see here when he gave back the crown, or he refused the crown for his 18-year-old nephew, Francis Joseph I, right? And the revolution of 1848 followed, as I told you, a very strict censorship system, very poor working conditions for workers, and the revolution is actually interesting because it combines two groups of people that beforehand were not in the same, they had not the same interest in mind, right? They were the workers and all the citizens of Vienna, like the citizen club, and they combined in this revolution to push the aristocracy for more social norms here in Austria, right? This is quite interesting because at one point in the revolution, the workers and the citizens fought against each other. The National Guard, which constituted a lot of citizens of Vienna, and the Academic Legion, which was a sub-part of the National Guard, they fought against the workers at the Viennese Prater. There is a Prater battle, very, very famous in August of 1848. You can see here. French Revolution again by military force. So he had to make a concession, and he had to make a compromise with the Hungarian people. And he made Hungary fully independent. It's now its own kingdom, right? It's a kingdom of Hungary and the Austrian Empire. Right? Together, they are the Count monarchy, combined under the umbrella of Emperor Francis Joseph and the Habsburgs. Fascinating about that is before 1867, here in Vienna, there were all ministries for the whole empire. Then, in 1867, the ministry split. Right? There is no agricultural ministry for Austrian part, Hungarian part, but one ministry stayed in Vienna and consisted of both states, and it was the war ministry. Quick question, anyways. And you can see the orange is Hungarian, or Magyar, which is correct description. And you can see here also in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croats and Serbians. So this is also back then it was difficult. Very tense situation between the different nationalities. And if you look really close at this map, you can see different spots, points of yellow, which is German, all over these territories of the Habsburgs. And you have to think after the First World War and finally after the Second World War, this were forced migration. Everybody that speaks German had to go. Right? There was no. You could take with you what you had on you and small package, but you had to go and leave everything behind for the people, right? So this was quite huge trains like of refugees after the First World War came to Germany and ended in the USA, but came also to Europe and became quickly a very important part of every army here in Europe. It was tested in the Japanese-Russian War, in the Crimean War, which could both actually considered industrial warfare, but real large-scale industrial warfare. This was only the first time in the First World War, which added a lot of new dimensions to warfare. One of the things that happened quite instantly was they noticed cavalry is useless. It's not. Centimeter diameter gun. It is a howitzer, and this gun actually was produced also in nowadays Czech Republic in the Skoda factories. You already saw a picture about them. And this is the 38 centimeter howitzer, which was only 10 pieces of them were produced. Only 2 survived to this day.